And I'd like to introduce the trainer now. So Swan is an advertising photographer by profession and an animal lover who turned vegan around a decade ago after he made the connection between the animals he loved as pets and the animals that he ate. He now volunteers as a photographer at different animal rescue and adoption centers to use his skills to help animals. So thank you so much, Gaurav, for agreeing to do this training for all of us. And yeah, I guess we can start the training now.
Okay. Thanks, Shweta. Thanks for the lovely introduction and for also putting all of this together, because I, ever since I turned vegan, and it's always a learning. For me, it was a journey from being non-vegetarian to vegetarian, and then to being vegan. So I always, I'm learning something or the other new about how to help animals, how to, in whatever way, like whether it's a small way of feeding, stray dog or a cat, or indie dog or a cat in the area, or to, turning vegan, helping animals, being an activist. So thank you for all the work that all of you all do. Some of you all I don't know personally, but I would love to know your journeys as well, because I feel like it's such a personal thing, and it's amazing that our love for animals have got all of us together to. Again, this photography part of it is a small part of the journey, but knowing that we're all heading in the same direction together, and that we're not alone, is I think the most amazing part from today, and that's what I'm gonna take away. But talking about me, I am 38 years old. I've been vegan for 10 years, clean vegan for 10 years. And before that, probably around 10 years being vegetarian. It wasn't the easiest journey in terms of, when you have lived so many years doing things a certain way. It's very difficult to break habits, and no matter how clear the truth is in front of you, changing your own habits is the biggest challenge, from inside. So I'm still learning. I'm still kind of, trying to look at other ways to kind of help animals besides being vegan. Talking about activism, there are people at different stages, I'm sure, and the people at different levels doing, wonderful work. And, again, that's another thing about this whole group of people. I feel like no matter what you're doing and no matter what level you're at, whether you've just started a couple of months back or a year back, or whether I saw someone, PJ McCoskey, who's been a long time activist and vegan for over 30 years. That's amazing, So there's people at all levels over here. There are things that we all will learn, including me, from our conversation today. I am a commercial photographer. Primarily that's my bread and butter. That's my job. I shoot, advertising campaigns, celebrities, cars, jewelry, fancy resorts, etc. That's that part of my life. But what I can kind of bring into this is kind of my expertise of 18 years of doing this hobby turned profession, and kind of see if it's of any use to y'all in kind of talking about, or kind of bringing the limelight on the animals and on the work that we can do to kind of help them. So I don't have a fancy presentation or anything like that, because I just prefer having like a open conversation. As I said, again, I'm looking to learn as much as I want to impart in terms of knowledge today, or can impart in terms of knowledge today. So I'm just going to put out a few. I'm going to put up a small set of images that we can kind of refer to when we're talking about stuff. Yeah, so let's just leave this as a placeholder, and we'll talk about stuff as and when the images, as and when we kind of reach those points. But let's talk about photography and what is its relation to activism. How does one tell a story without words? Okay, throughout the whole all the whole history of time, there have been people who have been writing, okay, they have been drawing, they have been using art to tell a story, from the time of cavemen, and from the time of the early writers talking about books, talking about their stories and talking about their travels, etc., talking about their culture, etc. So how do we use photography to rope that in and kind of use it as a medium to tell our side of the story. Photography can be a very important and very instant way of people kind of learning about stuff. Uh, because if you think about it, in the olden days there was cinema, and there were from the time of when pictures and photos, still photos was the history of still photos, those were able to kind of bring eyes, or bring attention to things from the time of slavery, and women's rights, and LGBTQ rights, animal rights, etc. So it's all kind of related. So we are also part of history, in our own way, kind of, and how we kind of use our cameras or use our mediums, whether it's writing an article about animal cruelty, or whether it's showcasing that through your cameras, through your phones. Nowadays, we're very lucky that we have these devices which are with us, which are very capable, through uh, a couple of minutes of work, you can kind of bring your perspective into the whole, the whole world wide web, where you can find like-minded people, like like all of us, very very easily, and speak your mind and kind of help, uh, especially voiceless uh, animals. So we'll talk about a couple of things. I have this story. Yeah. So photography is a language that almost everyone can understand. If you think about it, what brings so many people together, even though they may not understand each other's language. We're talking about people from different countries, different races, different cultures, etc. Um, if you try to have a conversation face to face with them, or even on video, they may not kind of understand what you've written or what you're talking. But if you have the right photograph and the right moment captured, anyone from a 3-year-old kid to a 90-year-old person, will can make a connection to that photograph very easily, no matter which part of the world they are from. So a photograph is a very important tool to kind of showcase your ideas. um, then, I think I was reading about this, one of the first activists that used a camera to help child labor. Okay, so before slavery and before a lot of other things, we had child labor that still, unfortunately, is very prevalent, in the world. But there was a gentleman who, he worked for a newspaper. His name was Lewis Hine, and he was one of the first people, at least documented, to kind of use pictures of these small children. I'm talking about 5 to 6 years old, 7 years old, working in working on construction sites, etc. Who he was able to kind of put a face to the a lot of stories were already written about these atrocities and about these crimes against children, but he was able to take pictures of these people, of these children, while they were in these construction sites. Uh, Let me see, I think I have a picture with. So he was the first person to use his camera for the sake of activism. Again, all of these, things are related, from child labor to slavery to other people's rights, women's rights. There are so many things that we are still fighting for, and people are still fighting for. And it's yeah. So this is one thing. This is another image that I really really liked. This is a 4-year-old girl who was working in a field, carrying these heavy things, and she was basically supposedly in the field for like 12 hours a day. So it's not new, um, that what we are experiencing and what our eyes have opened up to is not new. There are this has been repeating throughout history, and it's just our time to kind of do our bit for the animals now. Okay. Just go. Okay. So the now again, what I'm going to talk about today specifically is how to bring about, or how to use your camera, or how to use visual imagery to document and to create a story about, say, a protest, a certain activism that you all are planning, or if there is something happening in your city, or you all going to plan itself, how to plan that for social media. As you know, nowadays, it's not enough to kind of just meet and interact with the people on the streets. That's of course a very important thing, and that's what makes it really personal. And face to face conversation is always very important. But how to use that also and spread that across, that same uh, uh, interaction, how to spread it across different mediums and different channels. So the first thing to do is remember that when you're photographing, you should always initiate a conversation, invite a conversation. It should not be that, okay, this is a picture of, um, say an animal abuse, or say something that's happening, uh, and a couple of activists are kind of holding a placard or educating this thing. What is the story behind it, and how to create that story? That's what we're going to talk about today. It should be a conversation. It should not be, okay, this is what the truth is, end of conversation. Because I'm sure most of you all must have realized, if you all go in with that that strategy, most doors are going to shut immediately before you can even initiate the conversation. Most of the times people are so rigid and so set in their ways, that they don't want to hear. And if and what if they don't want to even assume that they could be wrong in their ways, because of multiple reasons, because of culture, family history, etc., etc. So how to kind of start that conversation, uh, the art of, probably maybe one image is not enough. Maybe you need to have a series of images, or if that one image is enough, what does it need to include? So we'll talk about a few different things. Okay. So one thing again, as I said, that's kind of worked for me into when I'm having conversations with people about being vegan, and what are the reasons for it. I always talk about the commonalities or the similarities between me and the person who I'm talking to. Say, for example, if the person likes a special kind of cuisine, I'll also initiate that and I'll also talk about it. But then I'll be like, okay, there is this version of it that is, cruelty free, or is better for the animals, etc. So whether it is taking having that conversation, or whether it is taking that picture, try to showcase something that's similar. So for example, if if like, so for example, I have a 3.5-year-old kid, and all his school friends, etc., have been on multiple visits to zoos and other aquariums, etc., and he's never been on one of those, um, uh, expeditions just because he knows, and at least at that age, how much of a he can grasp, he kind of understands why that is wrong. So how we are able to kind of have that connection or have that conversation with others, whilst not being like, okay, I am better and you're wrong. That immediately will shut the conversation. So it's better to kind of, I'm sorry, I'm going in a slightly different direction, but it's going to lead to the photograph. What I mean is that using your camera to kind of showing the similarities, like even if you're showing an activism, let's not try to make it too much of a full stop. Let it be more of a conversation starter. It could be just a hint, just a glimpse. Say, for example, instead of showing the whole scene of a couple of people, say for example, talking about dairy and probably dressed up in a way, or having a couple of having a cage, etc. So how to kind of not just show the whole complete scene, instead focus on details like the expression of the activist inside the cage, the suffering probably of the mother cow being whose baby cow is being taken away. So concentrating on details versus just the whole complete image. Your first instinct would be to kind of capture the whole thing. That's absolutely fine. But what I would suggest is kind of do it in layers. First shoot wide to kind of put a context to what is happening, then go slightly closer to kind of get some kind of a to bring some emotions out, whether it is an interaction between one person and another person, or whether it's an interaction between an activist and also the public, where the activist is talking about why a few things may be wrong, and that so talking about and kind of capturing uh, the the mids and then the close-ups of when, say for example, they are the common public, or the public who isn't aware of the atrocities. They probably see a video or see photos, and then the expressions on their face, some of them are genuinely horrified because most people don't realize what happens behind their meals. So having different focal lengths or different perspectives is very important. Now, where does your camera come in? um, Most people have a decent enough camera on their phones. It doesn't have to be the latest iPhone, or doesn't have to be the latest Samsung Galaxy, etc. If you do have it, that's amazing. It will just help things a little easier. But if you don't have the best camera in terms of specifications or in terms of hardware, what you can use is kind of use a couple of different guidelines. So for me, the most important thing, whether I'm shooting, a, a human, or whether I'm shooting an animal or an inanimate object, is light. So the reason why light is most important, because again, photography is painting with light. That's the definition of photography. So if you don't have light, so for example, if I shut off my light right now, you're not going to have the best kind of, you can barely see my face. Yeah, the laptop is kind of compensating for it, but the moment I switch on the light, there's a lot more focus. You can kind of see what's happening. So it's very similar for even shooting with natural light. Choosing the right time of the day, when the sun is not really high up, and it's not that blinding 12 o'clock sun, because one thing is, the images are going to be very contrasty, and they're going to create a lot of harsh shadows. So if you see, if I come in closer towards the light, and say for example this is your 12 o'clock sun, you don't really have too much detail on my eyes, etc. It's very shadowy and it's very contrasty, so it's not the most complementing light, and it's not going to be easy to capture even for your phone. So if you are planning an activism or an activity, I would say try, okay, if it is in your hands, to do it probably in slightly before like say a 9 to 11 a.m. kind of a slot, or then a 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. kind of a slot where the light is a little more pleasant on people's faces, not very contrasty, and you're also not battling with harsh shadows, closed eyes, squinting eyes, etc. Um, whether you're shooting the activists or you're shooting the public. Second thing is composition. You can shoot in multiple ways. You can shoot in your, I would say, old school method of, shooting horizontal, uh, or you could shoot vertical. Now, there are benefits to each. It's not that one thing is better than the other. I think most people nowadays are just used to shooting vertical because, we use our phones and social media and everything, Instagram, etc., is vertical. But there are benefits to still shooting horizontal because um, for things like YouTube, for other some other mediums, horizontal formats are still preferred. Um, they also allow for a slightly wider perspective. So what I mean by that is that if you have a large crowd, they're not going to be standing on top of each other. So you're going to be mostly having people standing side to side, sometimes, I don't know, 10 people, sometimes up to 50 people, I'm guessing. So at that time, shooting a vertical means you're losing out on a lot of real estate, empty real estate of sky on top and ground below to just get these many people. So it's better to just flip the camera from vertical to horizontal, rather fill up the subject than to show off the landscape, if your purpose is to kind of not show off the landscape, etc. But that's one thing. Vertical media is obviously much easier to process, to upload, um, and stuff. In terms of camera settings, again, I'm not going to dive in really deep because I mean, unless some of you all use your phones. Besides your phones, if you use any cameras, yeah, we need horizontal photos to send to the media as well. You're right. You're absolutely right. So that's one important thing. But do you all mostly use phones, or do you all also use cameras? If someone uses cameras, please just mention that. Then I'll go in a little deeper into the settings of what you could use for your camera. But for your phones, just put it on auto nowadays. Phones are so smart that instead of you kind of digging in deep and going into the settings, and it's much quicker and easier to kind of just put your phone on auto and capture the moment rather than worry about the perfect lighting, etc. So my first thing is always to capture the moment, and if I have time, I will fine tune the settings. You can always work with exposure. Exposure means how bright or how dark things are in your scene, whether whether your subject is facing the light, like how I am facing this lamp, or if it's the subject is backlit and the light source is behind, the sun is behind. Okay, so a couple of people have said they use cameras as well. That's amazing. So cameras, I'm sure most of you all know how to use the basic settings, but I'll just run through a couple of things. It's called the exposure triangle. There are three things that kind of affect the exposure or the overall lighting of an image. Number one is aperture. When the light goes in through the lens, it's always going to go in through the lens and then hit the sensor to take your image, whether that's a phone or whether that's a camera. So the first thing you can control is the aperture. A lower aperture is probably a 1.8, 2.8, 3.5, 5.6. And a higher aperture is f12, f16, f18, f22. Um, the higher the aperture, the more there is in focus. The lower the aperture, the less that is in focus, which will give you that blurry background, etc. So that is one point to think about when you're framing or planning your shot. The second thing that's going to affect your picture is the shutter speed. Shutter speed is how fast or slow your camera takes the picture, or how fast or slow the shutter remains open. So if you have noticed, even if you're shooting with your phone, if you're in a dark situation, you take a picture and you click the picture, and by the time the picture actually is processed and it comes to you, it's been a couple of seconds. That's because it's using a slow aperture to gather as much light as possible and put that picture together and give it to you. And you can also use a fast exposure when you are fast shutter speed when you are in the sunlight to freeze motion. Say, for example, if there is an activity where someone is splashing things on someone, or whether there is some water involved or fast movements involved, that's when a fast shutter is preferred, because it will freeze the motion versus letting it be blurry. The third thing that affects the picture is your ISO. ISO means it's basically your sensor, whether it's a phone or whether it's a camera, it heats up. It actually physically heats up to bring in more light or to become more sensitive towards light. So you must have noticed, if you're shooting in extremely dark situations, if you don't have, like, very good phone that does all the processing, etc., your pictures maybe a little grainy, they may be a little dull, the colors are a little washed out, everything looks a little like, like almost like a watercolor painting. That's because the phone or camera has been forced to go into a high exposure, high ISO, and that is degrading the quality. But that's still fine as long as you're capturing the moment that you're set out to capture. That's fine. As long as you're able to tell the story, all these things are very secondary. But that's basically the exposure triangle. We'll again take questions once we're done with the conversation. And I'd love to help people, especially people who are using manual cameras. I can help you all get the exact picture that, or exact settings that you all need. um, Getting back to talking about the composition, etc., there is another thing that most people don't realize when they are going for a shoot, or they are going to capture something, is to go a little earlier and scout the area or do a recce of the place. um, Before the action starts, it's always nice to go in and step in, whether you're shooting an event or whether you're shooting uh, uh, you know nature or landscape or whatever it is. I always advise people to go in a little earlier to the venue, much before everyone else, so that you can find the right spot, the right vantage point, the right location. Uh, can you repeat what you said? If there's a lot of movement, yes, I'll get back to you about the exact settings, PJ, for the camera. Allow me to do that. But what we'll do is what I was talking about was getting to the location or venue before time, so that you are able to understand what is happening around you, how many people are you all expecting, how big is the location, maybe a perspective, climbing up a building, going into a building and shooting from the first floor, second floor, from a top down perspective, will better tell the story, where you have people who are the activists, and then you have a crowd of people around them who are asking questions or learning, etc. So maybe doing a top down shot tells the story better. Or maybe going down a little lower, and say, for example, it's on a slightly elevated area, like, say, an amphitheater. Shooting from a little lower, shooting from the side, shooting, it's good to go a little earlier and kind of know what is the best vantage point, so that when the action starts, you are not running from point A to point B and missing out on the action. So going a little earlier, that's my number one suggestion, so that you're familiar with the place. Another very important thing is to try not going behind and shooting just silhouettes of people. They can be useful sometimes, but I think the most important is, especially in this line, is to get expressions and to get interactions between people, because that's what's going to kind of speak to, because humans, we look at other humans, and that's how we kind of understand things. We look at the expressions, etc. So if someone is looking happy or someone is looking sad, someone's looking horrified or confused, etc., their expression is key. So again, as I mentioned, shoot a wide shot of what is happening, then go closer to get the expression, get a variety. Don't be afraid to move around. Another thing, very important thing is, a lot of people, especially in public, the moment they see a camera, they get really nervous, and they get really conscious, and they may not be comfortable. So being a fly on the wall is very important, because that's how you can capture candid, authentic movements without disturbing the activists, or disturbing their, because the moment, even if they are heavy into a conversation, the moment they see a camera, they may be like, okay, this is going to go online, or this is going to go or just your first instinct is to kind of step back and you know be conscious about stuff. So that's another thing. um yeah. So now, how to tell a story in a single frame, it's very it's I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's a little easier to kind of shoot a video of what is happening, because that kind of has audio, that has movement, that has conversation, etc. But if you do have to use photos, how to use it? Because in just that one photo, how do you, talk about the story that's happening between two people, or how do you bring out the energy of that place? How do you convert that energy into a single 2D image? One thing to do is have a clear subject. What that means is that whether you're what do you want to bring attention to? Is it a group of activists? Is it say, for example, an animal that's been, harmed or is being harmed? What is your subject? So, making sure that that is in focus. And when I mean focus, I don't mean that tap to focus or you blur out the background. How do you get your viewers' eyes to kind of look at the subject that is intended, and not be distracted by the multiple things that may be happening in the background? um Sorry. So how to do that is to kind of firstly decide, before shooting or while shooting, who is your subject, and how do you get your viewer to look at the subject. It could be a person, again, it could be an animal, it could be a crowd. uh Firstly is to kind of put it in a meaningful context. Whether now having say, for example, if you're planning this activism and it's in a general park, etc., what is the connection of that park to uh, the the subject? Or what is the connection between the location and the thing that they are talking about? If there is no connection, then I don't think it's important to kind of show the park, right? So if, say for example, this is being done at a dairy farm, or outside a dairy farm, or outside, say for example, a factory, an animal factory, or a zoo, then it makes sense, because then you're kind of telling a story about these activists and what they are doing and where they're doing it. Correct. It's very easy to kind of to tell your story through that one image. But if they're just doing it in a general park, say for example on the beach, or somewhere in public, which it does where the location doesn't really matter, then it's better to avoid shooting the whole wide scenario and concentrate more on interactions, concentrate more on the details, concentrate more on people and their reactions to these things, um, their emotions and gestures. For us, I feel, for humans, it's very important to kind of see these interactions, and whether it's a video or see whether it's a photo, to capture these emotions, and to and making sure you are shooting throughout. So a lot of times, I also suggest, as I suggested, getting to the spot earlier, but also, if preempting what is going to happen. You see this crowd of young teenagers coming in, and there is this old gentleman holding a placard talking about probably why dairy is wrong, or why dairy is murder. And these young kids, in their teens, etc., who obviously are not aware about what is happening, their first reaction is to kind of be defensive or to make fun of the old gentleman. But preempting that, knowing that there is going to be some interaction, or going to be there is going to be this thing, and being ready to shoot at that moment is also a very important instinct, and comes with practice, to kind of notice your surroundings and not just wait for the action to happen. And when the action happens, you put on your camera. It's very important for people to kind of walk in, them walking in, them having that interaction, and them leaving. All of that combined will tell a story that is going to be useful for the activism. And there are also sometimes when having just some details or hints, or having some kind of uh, uh, things where brings out a curiosity or a question, is also very important. Uh, Say for example, you don't reveal the whole subject. Say for example, you just show a detail of the activist, and just his hands holding a placard, but you don't show who's holding the placard, you don't show why he's holding it, etc., etc. That itself could start a conversation and start a question, which could lead to a lot more things. Then what we can talk about is also talking about the first thing that would come to your mind obviously is talking about when we talk about this, is how painful, or how cruel animal abuse is. But we can also talk about bringing some kind of using activism in a slightly different way, and capturing in a slightly different way, where say for example, we if there is an if there's an event where people are distributing trials for vegan food, okay, whether it's a vegan ice cream or a vegan mock meat, or stuff on those lines, how to bring and how to get a slightly light-hearted moment, or showing people happily surprised, okay, wow, this doesn't taste vegan. In my mind, vegan food was bland and dry and choky, but this tastes amazing, this tastes as good or better than the real thing. So getting also that trying to find a balance of uh, bringing out joy, whether it's stuff like this, or bringing out stuff where people are upset or arguing, etc. Finding a balance is very important, because that will help you reach more people, and that is what our most important thing is, causes. Um Another very important thing is to be sincere when you're capturing stuff, just for the sake of capturing drama, etc., or to catch eyeballs. It may not necessarily be a good idea to kind of heighten things, or to kind of put things out of perspective. Keep it as natural as possible, but use your skills in the right way to kind of bring out those emotions. Okay, now we just talk about, if you do come across animals that you all want to photograph, how to do that, and how to kind of use those skills as well, to kind of bring attention to them, is instead of just showing a chicken or just showing a cow as a cow, try to show them as a try to show their personality. What is unique about them, what are they doing at that moment that will make a third person, make a viewer, probably not vegan, make their heart melt, or make them question their food choices. So looking at an animal from the perspective of an individual, and not just, okay, it's a cow, it's a cute cow, but it's just a cow. But instead of that, looking at it, looking at the cow as, probably he or she is playing with their with their with another cow, and they're kind of playing with each other, with their nudging each other, whether they're socializing, they are resting, they're tired, how to bring out those emotions and convert that into picture that will get more eyeballs towards this. Highlighting relatable behaviors. How do you see, most people don't have the connection that a dog and a pig, or a dog and a cow, behave, or a human behave all in similar ways. So getting that relatable behavior between all three, something like probably a cow doing something that is similar to what a dog would do, and so on and so forth. And thirdly, to humanize that animal at the end of the day, and that humanize that connection that cow may be having with another cow, and how to kind of this thing. So again, what I would do in that situation is kind of again show off the location the cow's in, whether it's in a dairy farm or whether it's on the streets abandoned, and then go in a little closer to kind of show what the cow's environment is, what situation he is in, what mental state he or she is in, and then probably close in on details, like say for example the cow's uh, tied through his he's got rope tied through his nostrils or her nostrils, and is being restrained in that way. So that is how you could do that. Again, going back to coming back to lighting, there are going to be some situations where you all don't have access to bright available natural light. So what do you do in those situations? One is keeping your phones or cameras steady. uh, if you do have the option to manually control your cameras or phones, then it's good to have a slightly higher shutter speed, because if you are in a low light situation with just a few bulbs or something where the lighting is not great, it's good to take a deep breath, take the picture, and then breathe out. That helps to kind of reduce shake. It helps to kind of give a sharper picture. And sometimes you may not have multiple chances to take multiple pictures. So that really helps with taking one picture quickly and having a sharp picture. Uh, Second thing is also what kind of mood do you want to bring to that photo? Say for example, if it's a really happy environment, now you would imagine everything to be nice and warm and bright and sunny. That's how your mind would think of a happy, or your eyes would make a connection that it's a happy image. But if you want to show something a little uh, you know emotional, or if you want to show something a little darker, etc., then it's good to also play around with the time of the day, or to kind say for example, if you see an animal being tied or being restrained somewhere, if behind it there's a nice beautiful garden and it's green and it's bright and colorful, even if the dog is tied, it may not bring a very convincing picture that this animal is being abused or being tortured. But if you captured, say for example, in the early hours of the day or the late hours of the day, and the it's really dark and sorry it's really dark and it's very gloomy, and it probably is raining, uh, and you see the dog drenched, or you see the dog in the dark, etc., and you take a picture at that time, it may be a lot more useful to showcase that picture than to have a bright sunny picture in like a very nice and good weather, etc. So the time of the day, the environment you shoot your subject in, whether it's a person or whether it's an animal, is also very important. uh, okay. Yeah, camera angles. We already spoke about camera angles when you're shooting, say, for example, an event. But camera angles can be also very important. Say, for example, if you're shooting and there are times when you may not be able to get close enough to your subject, especially if you're doing, you're trying to capture some kind of rescue or some kind of abuse, etc. It may not be safe for you or the subject to go in face to face and do that. So at those times, using either, if you'll have a camera, using a longer lens, a telephoto lens helps. If you all don't, then using a phone as much as you all can with its inbuilt zoom will also help. But also there's a fine line with this, because the moment you zoom in much closer, whether it's a camera or a phone, the more you zoom in, the more quality you're going to lose. So try to find that balance between safety, convenience, and quality when it comes to shooting your photos and videos. Uh, Again, shooting from a low angle, shooting, uh, say for example, this animal who's lying down on the ground, instead of just shooting top down like this, you can also shoot a low angle of the animal and its face on the ground, probably panting or in a very sad state. But you're able to get much closer. You're able to get the perspective of the animal from down below versus shooting something from top down may help. Another very important thing, whether you're shooting animals or humans, etc., or crowds, is to kind of cut out the clutter that's happening behind. So, if, for example, there's a very busy hoarding in the background, or a very colorful something, like a colorful truck or a building, or some text that is very distracting in the background, move your angle a little bit, left, right, up, down. Try to crop that thing out so that your viewers eyes go on your subject and they're not looking at every single thing in the background. So whether you do it in the camera while you're shooting, or whether you use your skills, editing skills, and edit or crop that out later, that's both are equally fine. And the last thing that we'll talk about before we get into the questions is editing. Now, I mean, I'm sure most of you all know that um, getting the perfect picture may not always happen, and whether it's picture or video, it may not always happen. Sometimes you're really lucky, and sometimes you're not. You just have to capture the moment, and then you need to when you're putting it up, or when you're uploading it, or whether you're sharing it with someone, at that time, how to use your editing, whether it's in a phone or whether it's on a software like Photoshop, etc. How to use it to kind of help this cause is to the first thing that I normally do is look at the composition. If there are any distracting elements like we just spoke about, just use your crop tool inside any photo editing tool. Just crop out the edges or crop out things that you think that are not needed. Nowadays, phones, not most phones, but some phones have a really nice edit out feature, etc., where you can edit a couple of distracting things uh, as well. So if you'll have the ability to do that, you can do that automatically. Or there is a software called Snapseed. Snapseed, I'm just going to write it down here so you can download it. Yeah, Object Eraser. Uh, I use Snapseed sometimes on my phone. That's really helpful to kind of um, you have things that you have a tool called the Heal tool. And what you can do is you can remove things that may be distracting. Like, say, for example, you have this subject and you have a long telephone wire or a electricity pole behind that person, and it's distracting all that subject. You can just erase that thing out and have a cleaner slate. Um, Another thing you can do is the next thing I do is I look at my overall exposure. uh, is the sky blown out? Is my subject looking too dark? Is it looking too contrasty? How can I balance things out? So the most easiest on our eyes have a great thing called dynamic range. That our phones and cameras and softwares, etc., also are trying to mimic. But if you notice right now, even even though it's dark outside, you may be able to look at your room and outside your window, or your passageway, etc., and there are multiple different layers of light, whether it's a bright bulb or whether it's a dark corner behind a door. Your eyes can adjust and balance out things very nicely, but our phones and cameras don't have that ability. So we need to kind of go into the editing and balance those things out. The first thing that I do is I lower the contrast. That automatically gives you a much more pleasant and much more even image. That's really helpful when you're shooting outdoor in the bright sunlight. It just reduces the contrast and the overall you know punch of that image. Second thing I do is, I probably, depending on what you need to highlight, you can increase the exposure or decrease the exposure. Increasing the exposure or brightness will make the things bright, decreasing will make it dark. You can also play with shadow highlights. Shadows, if you open up shadows, then the overall exposure will be clean. But if you open the shadows, then your dark subjects, the dark contrasty areas, will be a little more easier on the eyes and not be completely black. And say, for example, you have a sky that is blown out and is white, typical, summer sky, then you can lower down the highlights and you can have a balanced image. Another thing you can do is kind of saturate or desaturate the image depending on what you want to bring out in the image. Now, if it's like a landscape image, of course, you can play around and make it bright and colorful, etc. But in our scenario, I would rather desaturate the image, lower the saturation, so that your visual attention doesn't go towards, say, for example, someone wearing a bright, colorful red or yellow t-shirt, but instead goes towards the cause or towards a placard or towards an animal, etc., so that um, you're able to use your image in that sense. Um, PJ, I'm just going to read your question. Can you repeat what you said? If there was a lot of movement, we're trying to get multiple people to gather documentation or something we have in the called pig scrambles, which will, oh my God. There's a lot of okay. Okay, that's a good question, PJ. So again, as I think you've mentioned, you use your camera. So there you may have a setting to control your shutter speed. So there are two things that are going to help you in this case. One is increasing your shutter speed when is any subject running, or whether it's a horse running or an animal, whether it's a dog or cat running in a field. In this situation, kids and pigs, increase your shutter speed to around at least 1,000. Maybe if you can go up to around 1,600 to 2,000. Um, what that will do is that will make sure that you are able to freeze the motion. The second thing you need to worry about, the moment you increase your shutter speed, the camera is going to starve for light. So you will have to compensate with either a lower aperture to allow more light in, or a higher ISO to allow more light in. So try to find that balance. If you're not able to go up to 1,600, 2,000 shutter speed, you can if it's a very bright day. But if it's not a very bright day, if it's overcast or you're shooting in a slightly darker scenario, then try to still preserve, say, 500 of a shutter speed and go higher with the ISO. It's okay if the picture is grainy as long as you're able to capture your subject. Um, Shrish, what is the use of Photoshop in editing? Is Snapseed not enough? Snapseed is enough. It really depends on what you want to do. Photoshop has um, a lot of deeper tools, etc. I haven't, got into the new AI tools, etc. But if you want to change things like color, or if you want to mask out a subject and put them on a different background, if you want to, again, as I said, if you want to remove, like, clutter in the background, then Photoshop may be a little more easier to use and a little more specific, because you're able to use your trackpad. You're able to use a tool like a pen, a stylus, and stuff like that. Snapseed can do most of the job, I would say, general work. But uh, if you need to go in deeper and get something very specific, then Photoshop, etc., is a little more helpful. Saying that, nowadays there are lots of mobile for your phones, for iPad, a lot of apps which are free, which do a lot of stuff. I haven't dug in really deep into those, but Snapseed does 90% of what I need, so I can recommend that, and it's free. So yeah. Any more questions? We can take on the questions now.
Feel free to put it in the chat, and I could, read them out. Or you can also just like raise your hand and ask the question yourself. Chinmay is asking about geotagging, which is the best free app for that.
Okay, Chinmay, sorry, I haven't dug in too deep into this. Most phones have geotag, but if you're using a camera, then you may not have geotagging built into the camera. Some cameras don't have it. So what you can do is, what I'll do is I will look for a software. I have used one, but long back. I don't know if it still exists. When I was trekking in Ladakh, but I don't remember the name. But most phones have that software, have the geotagging built in. If you are using a camera, just tell me which camera you're using, and I'll try to recommend the software.
Also
Either
on the phone,
on
Android.
your phone most probably has GPS, and it itself will allow geotagging. If it's not doing that, then you can probably go into the settings, your
Mhm.
system, switch on notification. That will go.
Okay. Okay, so we'll have to change the settings.
Yeah, you can just put on the location services, and that should allow for the GPS to talk to the allow the camera to use your GPS. Raj Maru has said GPS map camera light is an application he uses on his phone, so please try that, and hopefully that works. Okay, specific camera settings as we take pictures in India during having high exposure. Do you prefer installing VND or playing with exposure triangle? Shrish, I don't think ND filters are needed unless you're shooting like some cinema quality video. I don't think it's needed, honestly. Even if you are, it's not needed. Um, we use polarizers to kind of cut out reflections in bright sunlight, but that's again for automobile shoots, etc., for inanimate objects. If you're shooting people and you don't have control over what time of the day they are doing the activism, etc., best thing is to just play with the exposure triangle. That's unfortunately all we have in our control. And then nowadays, honestly, cameras have pretty decent dynamic range. So go into your softwares, whether it's on your camera or whether it's on your phone or whether it's on your laptop, and just play around with the contrast, lower the contrast as much as possible, and play with the highlight shadows, and that should help you with this specific problem. I suffer with that as well whenever I'm shooting outdoor. Mayank is asking, can you suggest a software for image upscaling? I sometimes use, yeah, Canva. Canva is great. Honestly, Canva is a great free tool. I have used another software called Topaz. It's pretty good. Topaz Gigabyte, I think it's called. But just check out Topaz, the website. I'll just write it down here. Gigapixel. This really helps with that. Yeah, Adobe Image Upscaler is also a great option. Um, so you can try these out and see which works best for your workflow. I would love to also know, a little bit about you all. I don't know if you have. I mean, we actually have time. So if you all don't mind, yes, Lakshmi, please go ahead.
Good evening, sir. I'm Lakshmi.
Hi.
Actually, when I tried to record anything on mobile, the video is not good. I mean, it's little bit shaky or kind of it's not coming good. Like It's
Me,
yeah, it's not study. The video is not study. I mean, do you get it?
me,
So how
yes,
to
me.
avoid that?
Which phone you're using, Lakshmi?
It's Android or Realme.
Realme. Okay. So there are two things that you could do. One is kind of avoid movement while you're shooting. So say for example, what I normally do when I want to have a steady video is either rest against something or sit down. So you can rest against a wall, keep your camera steady and shoot that way. Or you can sit down on a whether it's a chair or whether any object that you can find, as long as if you are not moving, then there are less chances of the camera moving. The second option is
No, sir, actually, I'm sorry for interrupting, but
no,
not shooting myself, but I'm shooting animals. Like when I went to my village, I have shoot animals and also that time I'm saying.
okay, understood. So again, those situations also, if there is a possibility of you staying still and shooting, choose that. If there is no possibility, the second option is to getting a phone stabilizer. It's called the DJI Osmo Mobile. Okay, no, DJI Osmo
Okay.
Mobile. It's not very expensive. I think it's. I'm just going to tell you the exact model. Give me 1 second. Yeah. So you can get one for around 5,000 rupees. Yeah. Shrish has recommended one. There are different options available. You can get some cheaper ones also, but just get a mobile stabilizer. I found that to be very helpful if your phone doesn't have very good stabilization. That will make sure that even if you have fast movements, etc., your it's compensated by this. It also makes it much easier to hold versus holding a thin slab of metal. So, if you do have the means to get one of these gimbals, it's called a gimbal. I am just going to see if there's another one that's a little more cost effective. Um, there's another one from Digitech. Okay, it's called. Hmm. Okay, so there's another one from Digitech called the Digitech DSG 003, which is 3,000 rupees. I personally, if I had the means, I would go to a DJI, the DJI Osmo Mobile, because their software, their hardware is way better. Digitech, um sorry, I've written Digitech. Digitech, unfortunately, I've not had very good experience when it comes to their hardware. It's not the most reliable, so I would suggest a DJI if possible. Insta 360, does it also have a gimbal, Praveen? Or are you
Yes,
talking?
yes, yes, pretty famous.
Okay, okay, nice. Sorry, I didn't know. So that may be also another great option. But Lakshmi, you see whatever is available to you, whatever is feasible, and you can choose the best option that way. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. And one more thing, sir.
Yes, please.
At first, when I didn't join it first, so can you briefly explain what was the introduction?
Nothing. The
Yeah.
introduction, me just talking about my journey. I turned vegan about 10 years back, and I was just talking about that. Nothing too important. But what I was talking about was how important it is that we do all of this together, and we all in this together, and can help each other in whatever way we can. So nothing really important, but again, I think yeah, Shweta is saying that they got a recording, so we can rewatch this and revisit this. And also, yeah, another thing is, if anyone has any questions, uh, my Instagram is linked to the same post, so please write to me if you in the future, today, tomorrow, whenever. whenever you all are stuck with any photography related or anything that you may think I can help with in my small way, please add that. Please DM me, and I will respond for sure. Yeah. Okay. Shri has mentioned Hohem, very good option as well. So we'll do that. Can you please do a quick revision relation between exposure, depth of field, and exposure? Of course, yes, I'll do that. Okay. Thanks. Thank you. Thanks for joining. Okay. Crimson Studios. So, yeah, so the relation between aperture, depth of field, and exposure. So, aperture is the first thing that your camera allows the light to go in. So, this is even though it's a small opening, this is called a big aperture. Okay, it's basically the other way around. So, this is, say, for example, a 1.8 or a 2.8 or a 3.2. So, the moment you open your aperture, the more light goes in, correct? So the bigger the aperture is, the smaller the number. So this big circle will obviously allow more light inside. So what that does is that this is called a 1.8, 1.2, basically a lower number. When you have a number high like a F8, 11, 16, then it's going to be even smaller, which means less amount of light goes in. What that does is, firstly, the smaller the aperture, the more things are in focus. So when you're shooting a subject and then behind him there's a landscape and behind him there's another, probably the sun. And if you want to get everything in focus, you shoot with a higher aperture, which is f11, f16, f13, f18 onwards, which means your aperture is going to be small. If you want to blur out the background and if you want more depth of field, it's called depth of field, or if you want portrait mode, basically, that most people know that as portrait mode nowadays, is you have a bigger aperture which allows more light and gives you more things out of focus. It allows you to focus on a specific thing. Say, for example, I am the subject and I have a very busy background. What we can do is we can use a bigger aperture with a smaller number. It's a 1.8, but it's actually a big aperture, which will blur out the background and get more attention to the subject. When the background is not important, yes. And that's also called bokeh. It's a Japanese term. But what that means is basically a blurry background. And between aperture, depth of field, and, yeah, sorry, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a quick note before we take like other questions. So I've like
Yes.
pinned like a post-training survey form here. It'd be really great if all of you can take just like 2 minutes after the session to like fill it up. It'll just help us to like see how effective our trainings are. Also, like if you could mention which other trainings you want in the future, so we'll like at Wondrous World we'll make sure to like organize those that will help you guys become like a better activist. And I also like really want to thank Gaurav for like such a great training. I think I learned a lot, and I think like photography is one of the best ways to like reach many people and like tell stories of animals. And I think it's like a skill every activist should try to learn. So I want to thank Gaurav for like giving us all of this expert advice. And yeah, now we can like go back to any other questions. I think we still have like a couple of minutes. So if anyone has any other questions, feel free to unmute or put in the chat. Thanks.
Thank you, Shweta.
We have Raj.
Sorry.
We have Raj in line.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Gaurav, for this wonderful session. I have
Welcome.
one question here. So usually we do a lot of field visits and vigils, and many times we go to daily units uh, for field visits. And when we do photography inside the daily units, most of these are very shanty. So there's a lot of light outside, but as soon as you enter inside, there's very low light. And since most of them raise buffaloes, when you click a photo, it loses even more details because the animal is black, the background is dark as well.
True.
So how do we fix? Is there the camera settings that we can use to fix that and capture as much detail as possible?
Are you using a camera or using a phone?
I use a phone, iQOO Neo 10R.
Which one? Sorry.
It's a iQOO 10R.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Okay. So there are two options you have. One is if you do have the ability to carry a small light. Do you think there's a chance of carrying a small light?
Uh, I mean, we can carry a small light. It's just that when we use certain camera, like more things along with the camera,
Yeah.
people around they get more suspicious. So that's a challenge.
Okay. So I will leave that up to you because you can judge the situation better. If you do have the option to carry a small LED light, a lot of brands like I would recommend products small LED. Just a second. But basically, you can just type in mobile photography, LED light, etc. You get these really tiny ones. Godox has a thing called Light Mons. Okay, look, Godox has a thing called M. Okay, I'm just going to write it down here in the thing called LED M32 smartphone light. Smartphone light. What that does is that it is just going to help you with help your phone with the exposure and also help you kind of differentiate. I know it's a very difficult subject to shoot. Firstly, in a dark situation, shooting a dark subject against a dark background, very difficult. Uh, this small light will help you get that separation. Firstly, it also won't be very distracting. It's something that can fit in the palm of your hand. So it's literally something you can just flash for a second, take a picture, and it's not going to flash. What I mean is, you put it on and then just hide it. So that is one option. The other option is kind of shooting from a position. Say, for example, there must be some place where there is a source of light coming in, like some window or some door or something like that, where there is some window light coming in, a natural light coming in. You step in and stand in front of that so that you're getting this light from behind you, which will automatically help you kind of fill up that the dark space. It may not help for the inner sections, but at least the stuff that is closer towards the door or the window, at least you can get something usable out of that. That is the default option. And then if you can't do that, then probably hold a small LED light that will help you with that. Another thing is what you can do is if you do want to get another thing is use maybe if you're not alone, if you have a partner, use their phone torch or their phone LED to use it as a LED light. That will just give you the slight little more help with making sure that you're able to get a balanced exposure. And then last thing you can do is just play around in editing and open up the shadows a little more, and that will also help with stuff. One thing I didn't mention earlier is that a lot of phones have the ability to shoot in RAW. Um, there is this format called RAW versus JPEG. Sorry, I missed out on that. But JPEG is basically a baked-in, completely set-in thing where the colors, the exposure, everything is set in. And RAW is what, like imagine in the olden days we had those negatives. So RAW is basically a negative, which you can then go ahead into a lab and play around what we should do 20 years back. Nowadays, you can just go into editing and you can open up the exposure, change the contrast, saturation. Uh, there are many free softwares on Android and iOS that allow you to shoot RAW. So experiment with that. See, before you go into the situation or go into the real world, experiment at home and see, how it's reacting. Every phone is different. Every camera has a different RAW processor. So sometimes the JPEG may be better. The JPEG processing may be better than the RAW. Sometimes the RAW processing may be better. So, experiment with the settings and, before you go into the situation, like a dairy farm, so that over there you're not wasting time. You know what is the best settings, and you get the best picture possible. Okay, sorry. Right?
Right. Can I go?
Yes.
Right. Okay. I don't have a question, Gaurav, but I just wanted to thank
Yes.
you for such an informative session. I've been vegan for around 5.5 years or something. And I do felt like at times when you made certain points that, yeah, this is something certainly going to come in handy. For example, you mentioned that you should try to find common grounds when trying to click pictures, like common interest. That is something I immediately thought of a scenario in my head. Ki, a person is sitting inside a cage and a dog is uh, seeing that, and we can capture this. So how powerful that would be. So moments like that, and uh, things like scouting the area before actually going, like starting the event, that would really help. So all in all, really informative session for me. Thank you so much for that.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, PJ, sorry, can you show us some photos related to activism or animal rescue investigation that you've taken part of, that you're proud of? I unfortunately haven't taken too many of these pictures, but I have, shot a lot of animals for rescue centers, for animal sanctuaries, etc. What I'll do is I will try to, how do I share this with you? Maybe if you can send me a DM on Instagram, I will share a link though, because those pictures are still not, like, they're not on my website or anything like that. But I do have a collection of really nice images that I would love to share with you all. So maybe send me a DM and I'll send you that link. Yeah. Thanks, PJ. Thank you. Any more questions, guys? Any please?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, if they're okay, I guess there's another question in the
Yeah.
chat here.
Question about here. An app or a trick which helps smoothen the process of getting pictures from a team mesh to one person's process. Okay. It's a good question. Let me see. Unfortunately, because people are using different platforms. Like if everyone is using one device, like say iOS, then there is iCloud, etc. But I think as of now, I mean, I can't think of anything else besides Google Drive. It's the most universal. Dropbox and Google Drive. I can't think of anything. Maybe a WhatsApp group where you post high definition pictures, maybe doing that, or pictures as a document. That's also a good way of sharing so that everyone gets the images together. That would be, I think, the most instantaneous choice for me. But in case anyone has any suggestions for Mahika's question.
Yeah, I think most activists just stick to Google Drive since everyone can, has easy access to it. So, or, you just directly post it to social media and then people could access it from there.
Nice. Fair. Proton Drive. That's cool. I'm going to try that out. In the era of landscape format, gone with portrait mode, taking space. Okay, that's a very good question, Tom. I don't think landscape format images, that era is gone yet, because yes, even, I mean, I'm talking from my perspective of being a commercial photographer. Yes, we do shoot a lot of images in a vertical format because social media, digital, Instagram is everything nowadays. But I still think there's a big benefit of shooting horizontal. As I said, if you're shooting a wider landscape or people, a crowd of people, I mean, I'm, talking to you all on a laptop, and I still think a horizontal photo looks better for that. Even Shweta was mentioning for media, etc. They still prefer having a horizontal format over vertical. So I don't think it's completely gone. I think you can find a good balance, and always go with what your subject needs. If your subject is primarily a vertical looking frame, use your instinct and shoot a vertical frame. But if you feel that a horizontal frame tells a story better or fits a wider subject, then stick to horizontal. I don't think anything is wrong or right.
Guess we can wait for 1 minute if anyone has any other questions, and maybe we can take like one last question and then conclude.
Sure. Any course or YouTube channel suggestions? I used to really watch a lot of photography YouTube and Google a lot of stuff. I don't anymore. Maybe I'm just old now and bored of it. But um, F stoppers. I'm just gonna type in a couple of names that I probably remember. They still do some good stuff. F stoppers is good for overall good articles on photography. They do have a lot of event, and I think I saw a couple of animal um, uh, activist articles on that as well. F stoppers is good. If you want to learn specifically about photography, there is this channel, forgetting the name right now, by this Indian gentleman who's very good at photography education. I'm just going to quickly think about it. But yeah, I'll think about it and I'll try to type it in here. If I don't remember, I'll Pixel Village. Pixel Village on YouTube or Instagram. Very helpful. Multiple different languages, all our languages, and very good teachers over there. And it's a good YouTube channel to learn photography. Have you tried AI for photo editing, like with cloud integrations? What are your thoughts? Unfortunately, no. I'm a little against AI. I'm a little old school that way. But I haven't. I've been a little lazy when it comes to AI. I haven't used any AI till date. I mean, of course, nowadays Google also has AI integrated, so I can't say I'm completely AI less. But I haven't used for photo editing. Um, Saying that, I do a lot of commercial campaigns, and I know that there is a lot of AI happening behind the scenes by the agencies there. So AI is kind of is useful in some ways, I guess. Not in my workflow as of now.
All right. Thank you everyone for like asking such great questions and for attending. And I hope you guys would like, use all the learnings from today's session into practice, and we'll see like more photos on social media of people doing activism. I guess there's another question. Okay.
That's a good point, Tom. Yeah, social media platforms. Unfortunately, we all know that. I mean, forget animals; they don't care about humans. So, I mean, I don't think that's going to happen. But I mean, there are always ways to kind of work around that. You can post in a horizontal format. You don't need to comply to the vertical format always. So it's fine. Post in whatever format you would like to. But yeah, thank you everyone. It's an inherent cognitive base. Yeah, true that. But thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It
Yeah,
was really informative.
thank you so much. And as I said, my Instagram handle is back there and also on
Yes. We'll connect
uh,
on your Insta.
uh, if you like advice about camera or printing out stuff or wherever you are stuck, editing, in whatever way I can help, I'll help. Yeah, always happy to help.
Thank you so much, Gaurav, for being so kind and patient and answering everyone's questions. Yeah, thank you so much. So I guess we could conclude the session now.